way. Oh, they'll never taste it now. I mean, was it a ghost? Who's there? Called out Ben, the figure. Oh, hey guys, glad you're here. I wasn't planning something. I was actually reading David Walliams' Gangster Granny. Yes, that's what I was doing, only that. All right, if you're liking Mr. Stink and you want something to continue the fun, check out Gangster Granny by our same author, David Walliams. But today, you had told me that you were ready for something delicious, and you mentioned that you thought this was very delicious. Rabbit droppings. Okay, that's disgusting. I don't know why you thought that was delicious, but let's continue on with Mr. Stink, Chapter 18, titled Rabbit Droppings. Now remember to pay close attention to the story, as you will have some questions to answer at the end, and you're going to do so with the correct answers because you were listening to the story. Let's get started with Chapter 18, Rabbit Droppings. We want Stink! We want Stink! Chloe peeked through a gap in the curtains. There was a huge crowd of people outside their house. News reporters, camera crews, and hundreds of local people waving large pieces of cardboard emblazoned with slogans. Mr. Stink forever! Stink for Prime Minister! We love you, Mr. Stink! Mr. Stink's appearance on television the previous night had obviously had an enormous effect on people. Overnight, he had gone from being an unknown smelly tramp to a hugely famous smelly tramp. Chloe put on her dressing gown and raced down to the shed. Is it time for Lily to meet the flesh-eating zombies? Inquired Mr. Stink as he entered. No, Mr. Stink, can't you hear the crowds outside? I'm sorry, I can't hear you properly, he said. I found these rabbit droppings in the garden. They make excellent earplugs. He popped out the 2 little brown pellets as Chloe looked on with a curious mixture of disgust and admiration for his ingenuity. For those of you who may find yourself out in the wild and in need of earplugs, just follow this easy step-by-step guide. Figure A. First, find a friendly rabbit. Figure B. Wait patiently for it to deposit some droppings for you. Figure C. Insert 1 in each ear. Larger ears will require bigger droppings and possibly even bigger rabbit. Figure D. Enjoy a great night's sleep on slightly marred by the smell of rabbit poo. The Duchess sniffed at the droppings in the vain hope that they would be a couple of rogue Maltesers, or at the very worst some of Raj's despised coffee revels, but quickly turned up her nose when she realized they were poo, and went back to her makeshift basket. That's better, said Mr. Stink. You know, I had the strangest dream last night, Miss Chloe. I was on television discussing all the important issues of the day. Your mother was there too. It was hilarious. That was no dream, Mr. Stink. That really happened. Oh dear, said the old tramp. Maybe it wasn't so funny after all. It was hilarious, Mr. Stink. You were the star of the show, and now there's hundreds of people camped outside the house. What on earth do they want, child? You, said Chloe. They want to interview you, I think, and some people want you to be the Prime Minister. The crowd was getting louder and louder. We want Stink! We want Stink! We want Stink! Oh my word! Yes, I can hear them. They want me as Prime Minister, you say? I must remember to appear on television more often. Maybe I can be king next too. You'd better get up, Mr. Stink, now. Yes, of course, Miss Chloe. Right, I want to look smart for my fans. He bumbled around the shed, sniffing his clothes and grimacing. If even he thinks they are smelly, thought Chloe, they must be really bad. I could put some clothes on for a quick wash and dry for you, she offered hopefully. No, thank you, my dear. I don't think washing machines are hygienic. I'll just get the Duchess to chew off some of the particularly nasty stains out. He dug through a pile of his clothes and pulled out a pair of spectacularly dirty, encrusted brown trousers. Whether they had been brown when they had started their life was now anybody's guess. He passed them to the Duchess, who began her task of a reluctant dry cleaner and started munching on the stains. Chloe cleared her throat. Mr. Stink, You said on the TV show how every homeless person has a different story to tell. Well, can you tell me your story? I mean, why did you end up on the streets?"
"Why do you think, my dear?"
"I don't know. I've got millions of theories. Maybe you were abandoned in a forest as a baby and raised by a pack of wolves."
"No,"
he chuckled. "Or I reckon you were a world-famous rock star who faked your own death as you couldn't handle the adulation."
"I wish I was."
"All right, then. You were a top scientist who invented the most powerful bomb in the world, and then, realizing its dangers, went on the run from the military."
"Well, those are very imaginative guesses," he said. "But I'm sorry, none of them are right. You're not even close, I'm afraid."
"I thought not."
"I will tell you when the time is right, Chloe."
"Promise?"
"Oh, I promise. Now give me a few minutes, my dear. I must get ready to greet my public."
Chapter 19. Supertramp.
"I'm not apologizing to him."
"You have to." Mr. Stink sat at the head of the kitchen table reading all about himself in the newspapers as Chloe stood at the stove frying some sausages for him. Her parents were arguing again in the next room. It wasn't a conversation that their house guest was meant to hear, but they were so angry their voices were becoming louder and louder.
"But he does smell."
"I know, he smells, but you didn't need to say that on the television." Chloe smiled over at Mr. Stink. He looked so engrossed in the headlines. Supertramp. Stinky superstar still show. Homeless man saves boring election. That he appeared not to be listening. Or maybe he'd put his rabbit-dropping earplugs back in.
"Obviously not,"
shouted Mother.
"Last night I had another call from the Prime Minister telling me I have embarrassed the party and he wants me to withdraw as a candidate."
Good.
"What do you mean, good?"
This whole thing has turned you into a monster, shouted Dad.
"What? I am not a monster."
"Yes, you are. Monster, monster, monster."
"How dare you?"
screamed Mother. "Go and apologize to him."
"No."
"Apologize." For a moment, all you could hear was the sizzle of sausage fat and lard in the frying pan. Then, slowly, the door opened and Mother oozed like slime into the room. Her bouffant was still not what it was. She hesitated for a moment. Her husband appeared in the doorway and gave her a stern look. She did a little theatrical cough. "Mr. Stink," she ventured.
"Yes, Miss Crumb,"
replied Mr. Stink without looking up, still engrossed in the papers. "I would like to say sorry."
"What on earth for?"
he inquired. "For what I said about you on Question Time last night, about you smelling of all those things. It was impolite."
"Thank you so much, Miss."
"Call me Janet."
"Thank you so much, Miss Janet. It was rather hurtful, as I do pride myself on my personal hygiene. Indeed, I had a bath just before I went on the show."
"Well, you didn't really have a bath, did you? You had a pond."
"Yes, I suppose you're right. I did have a pond. And if you so wish, I will have another pond next year. So, I remain perfectly clean."
"But you're not clean. You stink," began Mother.
"Be nice,"
interrupted Dad forcibly. "You don't know this," said Mother to Mr. Stink, "but after what I said on Question Time last night, I've been asked by the Prime Minister to pull out of the election."
"Yes, I do know, actually. I heard you and your husband arguing just a moment ago in the living room."
"Oh," said Mother, uncharacteristically lost for words. "Sausages are ready," said Chloe, trying to save her mom from further humiliation. "I'd better be off to work now, love," said Dad. "I don't want to be late." "Yes, yes," said Mother, waving him away distractedly. He discreetly picked up a couple of slices of bread and slipped them into his pocket on the way out. Chloe heard the front door loudly open and close, and then the door to the room under the stairs very quietly do the same.
"Just 7 sausages today, please, Miss Chloe," said Mr. Stink. "I don't want to put on any weight. I have to think of my fan base."
"Fan base?" said Mother in a barely disguised jealous rage. The telephone, which had been crouching on the table doing very little, suddenly sang its little song. Chloe picked it up. "Crombie residence? Who is speaking, please?"
It's the Prime Minister. Mother's face lit up with hope, and even her bouffant seemed to perk up a little bit. Ah, yes, I knew my darling Dave would change his mind. He wants to talk to Mr. Stink, actually, continued Chloe. Mother's smile turned upside down. Mr. Stink picked up the receiver with a nonchalance that suggested he often received calls from world leaders.
Stink here. Yes. Yes. Oh, yes.
Mum and Chloe studied his face like a map, trying to read from his reactions what the Prime Minister was saying.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, yes. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Mr. Stink put down the receiver and sat back at the table to resume his now daily task of reading about himself in the newspapers. Well? Yes, well? Chimed in Mother.
The Prime Minister has invited me to go for tea at number 10 Downing Street today, said Mr. Stink matter-of-factly. He wants me to take over from you, Miss Crumb, as the local candidate. May I have those sausages now, please, Chloe?
And that, my friends, will do it for chapters 18 and 19 of Mr. Stink. Now, pay close attention to the details in the story. Use complete sentences. If you're asked to answer a question, always use a complete sentence which starts with a... Oh, let's try that again. Which its sentence starts with a capital and ends with a period. All right. Good luck on your questions. I'll see you tomorrow for Grubby Toilet Roll.